Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James, joined once again by my co-host Cody. Cody, how are you on this Happy Halloween?
Happy Halloween, everybody. James, I'm doing all right. Life's getting crazy per usual. It seems like anymore, but I'm doing all right. James, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Might have new coworkers in the lineup coming up soon here, so we'll see how things go.
Coworkers?
But,
Multiple?
Co-worker.
Oh, okay. I was like, they're hiring more than one? They're becoming
They really
smarter?
should.
I know. They should hire like four. I wonder what the starting pay is for him now, because I bet you it isn't 17.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
We'll see what they're doing.
I think they should raise it, but
we'll find out. Anyways, we're going to talk Steelers news with you guys. This is not the first episode of the month. Obviously, it's Halloween. It's the last episode. So next Sunday, reminder, when we record next Sunday, since we don't have a game next week, we will talk month recap, downloads, who top states, top countries, all that stuff. So keep a look on that. But we're going to talk Steelers news real quick. And something that was a big kicker right at the beginning of everything was Chris Boswell. The kicker was injured. He injured his groin during practice or during the week last week. And so he was more than likely going to miss. With that being said, Pittsburgh went and signed Nick Skiba. Skiba was signed to the Skiba. I said Skiba again. Skiba signed to the practice squad. And they released Josh Malone in return. And then obviously they elevated him for the game. Skiba came in and Skiba played pretty well. We'll get to that later, but he played pretty well.
Yeah, it was all right. What a kick to the groin, huh? Not having Chris Boswell out there. That's
a little bit.
Also, before we get too far into this, I just want to remind people, if you're listening to this and you have not clicked on the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to or viewing on, don't forget to do that. You don't want to miss out on any of these shows, especially this next one that we're doing next week on Sunday. It's going to be a big show telling you what's going on so far halfway through the season and what Pittsburgh can do to kind of correct course, get going in the right direction. Not to mention second half of the schedule, it's a little easier than the first half was. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff on that show. But onto this show we go. After the transactions with Chris Boswell and Nick Skiba, who, if the name sounds familiar, he was on the practice squad or on the preseason roster. He played for the Steelers this preseason. They elevated Nick Skiba from the practice squad to the 53 for the game day roster. In addition to that, also Carlos Davis, which, as we would find out when the inactives were declared, that was due to the injury, the lingering injury to Larry Ogunjobi. So the inactives for the game, Mason Rudolph, per the usual, Chris Boswell, per the groin injury, Larry Ogunjobi, who missed with the back, Levi Wallace, who missed with the shoulder, Josh Jackson, who I think he was a groin too, Mark Robinson, a healthy scratch, and Kendrick Green, a healthy scratch due to lack of playing ability. That's with Green, not with Robinson.
Correct. So those were the injuries or inactives before the game, not injuries. So, and then the game happened, which you could call it a football game. I didn't feel like I watched a football game.
It was at the beginning.
I felt like I guess that's fair. The first drive was all right. Well, the second drive was all right. The first drive was 3 and out. But
yeah, typical.
Yeah, you expect it at this point. I don't know. I don't even know where. Like, I know we're gonna go. I know what we're gonna do this game. Like, for the recap, we do it every week. We go through the quarterback and the wide receivers, the running back, tight end. But this game, man, just spoke volumes, in my opinion, to how hot and cold, mostly cold, Pittsburgh can be this year. That first touchdown drive with the end around, the trick play and the pass from Chase Claypool to Derek Watt. I think really solidified how well Pittsburgh can play. Kenny Pickett, even on that drive, had a phenomenal. I don't think he missed a pass on that drive, or maybe
he was like 7 for 7 or 8 for 8 or something crazy.
And then it just tanks, and I don't know what it is. Yeah. I don't know if it's specific defensive schemes that they can't play against, or if it's a specific blitz package, or what it is. that Pittsburgh's like, oh, we can do this. Just kidding. We're not gonna. Like, it's just wildly different from any other team I've seen play. You look around the league and you know teams that are good and teams that are bad. And then you look at Pittsburgh and you're like, they're bad, but it's because they're good and bad. Like, we've seen them play really well and we've seen them play absolutely horrible. And most of the time it's in the same game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so frustrating to me. It's starting to become really predictable. Like on the first drive, they get the 3rd and 1, and what do? They bomb it deep incomplete and kick and end up punting. Like, what are you doing? It's 3rd and 1. Why in the hell are you bombing it deep? That is a 2nd down situation. That's a 1st down situation. Never on 3rd and 1 should you be bombing it deep. That is like the last out of 100 things you should do on 3rd and 1 is bombing it deep. So just this was one of the first times that I looked at it and I said, man, like I have had a lot of times where I've watched a play happen and said, you know, it was a bad decision by the quarterback. He threw to the wrong guy. Some of these calls though, man, like as good of a call as it was to call that reverse pass by Claypool for a touchdown to Derek Watt, it was just as bad to bomb it deep on 3rd and 1.
Yep.
And it just as bad as that decision and that play call was the consistency of Deontay Johnson just looking like he didn't know what he was doing out there.
Yep.
You know, Kenny Pickett's throwing it in one place and Deontay's nowhere near it, or he decides once again that it's not close enough, so he's just not going to continue running his route. And just over and over, when he threw in the direction of Deontay Johnson, there was a huge disconnect. And Kenny even said after the game in his interview that we don't study enough. We're not in the film enough.
Yep.
We're not working hard enough throughout the week to win on Sundays, and it shows on Sundays. And then went as far as to say we keep on doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, and that's just crazy.
Yep.
And I think the first part was probably a direct shot at some of his teammates, and I would say specifically Deontay Johnson, because he's the only one that the ball was being thrown in his direction, but it was drastically off on a regular basis, as if he was running the wrong route or not reading the defense correctly or giving up on the route. Everybody else, when the ball was thrown their direction, the ball was close or catchable.
Yep.
And Deontay, over and over, it wasn't.
Deontay Johnson, for I believe the 3rd, if not 4th week straight, was the most targeted receiver, and somebody outcaught him. So,
yeah. And how many targets did he have this week? Like
9.
freaking a dozen?
9. And he caught 5
what,
of them.
4 or 5?
5.
Yeah. He keeps on hovering right around 50%. If you're a number 1 wide receiver, that's awful.
Chase Claypool targeted 6 times, caught 4. Pat Freiermuth targeted 7 times, caught 4. 1 was almost an interception, thrown a little high. Najee Harris targeted 6 times, caught 6. Jalen Warren targeted 3 times, caught 3 balls. Derek Watt targeted 2 times, caught 2 balls. Zach Gentry targeted once, caught 1. The only player that I think had a bigger sad day than Deontay would be George Pickens, targeted 3 times, 0 catches.
Yeah. And the one was a catch that should have been challenged.
Yeah.
That was irritating to me, but what are you going to do on that? But yeah, to me, the offense is looking predictable. It's looking stale, and it's predictable in the result as to basically if you throw to Deontay and you need it, you're not going to get it.
Yep, that's how it's been going. That's what we've been seeing. Again, we'll go through this like we normally do. We'll talk specific positions. Kenny Pickett, not a great game. 25 of 38 for 191 yards and interception. I don't know. Kenny Pickett, I feel like, and Bill Cowher even said something about this too. At what point, I don't remember the exact quote. I don't know if you saw this or not.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up real quick.
Yeah, he was saying that they're leaning too many times. You've got to get their ground game going. You've got to take some pressure off of them. It's absolutely too much pressure for a rookie quarterback. And I would go a little further as to say, not necessarily the number of throws being asked of him is too much, but the lack of quality protection. In this game, the offensive line let him down drastically. And he still completed 2/3 of his passes while being obliterated play after play after play. These guys are not handing off blitzes well. Stunts are happening right in front of them, and they're not doing anything correctly as far as picking up the guy that's coming from one direction or another. There was one play where Hargrave came straight into Kevin Dotson's chest. Dotson handled it. There was no one outside to the left as far as defender, so he handed it off to Dan Moore, who then just let him run right on by and continued blocking no one.
Yep.
Like, how is that even a concept that there's no one in front of you, no one around, and you're not looking for work? How are you not looking to your right and saying, hey, there's a defender here. Let me put a hand on him at least to help out my guy to the right. There's such a disconnect with the offensive line in helping each other that it blows my mind. And I know that a lot of these guys are playing together for the first time. I feel like Mason Cole is playing pretty injured. We saw Chukwuesekor for limping really badly at the end of last week's game. So I feel like there's a decent chance he wasn't 100% either. But I feel like these guys need to start taking it personal. I need to see him jumping into piles. Like a perfect example, there was a pass play to Chase Claypool where he was probably about 5 yards short of the first down marker. And he starts driving his legs. And then who comes in? But Connor Hayward comes in and smashes into the pile. And they take the whole thing another 10 yards. And he's 5 yards past the first down marker because of it.
Yep.
Why are we getting that effort out of our third string tight end and none of the offensive linemen?
No clue. Couldn't tell you. That's the nasty we've been looking for, though.
But it's not there.
Not from the offensive line.
Not from the offensive line. Nope. I'll tell you who I'm starting to see it from, though. That's Chase Claypool.
Yeah. Yep. Chase Claypool.
Chase is playing angry. He's on the sidelines, pissed when things aren't going well. And when people try to tackle him, he is powering through and going for extra yards on a regular basis. And he's starting to look like a guy that you can build around.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Again, not to go too far off topic with all these players and the play style and stuff. But Kenny Pickett, again, he was sacked, 6 or 7 times this game?
6 times.
6 times he was sacked this game. You can't have your rookie quarterback going through that. And don't get me wrong. I believe that Kenny Pickett is a phenomenal player and is an easily starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Trubisky should be coming in at this point and playing just to preserve the rookie quarterback's confidence level, which is what Bill Cowher talked about. And again, people talk about everyone wants to compare Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher, and I've been on that boat before too. I think it's hard. I think Tomlin is failing this team right now on because of what he's doing coaching the coaches. I think the coaches are failing and Tomlin's not. I haven't seen him take responsibility enough for it, in my opinion. And maybe that'll change this week. Maybe it won't. I don't know. People are calling for, Canada to be fired. I don't know if that would help anything at this point. I really don't. Because then you have
and who are you going to put in?
Well, that's position? My point. Yeah, that's my point.
Some coach that's not in the NFL right now is going to be a better offensive coordinator than him.
Yeah. So there's pros and cons to it. I think the pros is you're showing the benefit of firing somebody like that in this situation is you're showing your team that you can't get away with not doing the job well. That's the only benefit. That's it. Because then they realize, hey, Coach Tomlin, the Rooney family, whoever, the head office, the front office people understand that, when we're not playing well, you can't just get away with that. But the downfall is then you're going to go through the rest of the season trying to learn a new playbook, new play style, this and that. It's not going to get much better, if any better after that. So there's a challenge there. But I think that you need to do something in order for Kenny Pickett to have a better chance, because with the offensive line, it's not like the offensive line that Ben was behind when he was a quarterback and went 15-1. That offensive line was Pro Bowlers right to left. Like, it was crazy.
Literally, yeah, you had 3 Pro Bowlers on that offensive line.
Yep.
Villanueva, Pouncey, to Castro. I mean, that goes down as maybe one of the best offensive lines the Steelers ever had.
Yeah.
And ever will have, probably.
Yeah. So you're not going to have that now.
Yeah. No.
Let's move to running backs.
To me, real quick, before we run off of that topic, I would say that now is the worst time to bench Kenny Pickett and put in Trubisky.
Okay.
And I say that because the schedule is finally getting easier. He has just gone through the worst part of the schedule, the toughest opponents that we have the rest of the year. And to pull him before the easy stretch comes up, I think would personally be criminal.
That's fair.
I think that would be awful to pull him with that. So I staunchly disagree with Bill Cowher on that particular idea. And I think that the biggest thing that they need right now is a reality check to some of the underperformers and some time to heal. I feel like Mason Cole is very obviously playing injured. And Mason Cole injured is still better than J.C. Hassenauer, which that's just the way it works in the NFL. The backups are basically always a lesser quality. And Okorafor, obviously, we don't have a backup tackle anywhere near good enough to be out there.
Yeah.
But these guys have some ankle and some lower body stuff that having an extra week off from practice will help heal. Time helps heal these kinds of things. But their pride needs to be damaged right now. I hope that their pride is hurt, and I hope they come into this next game playing angry.
As they should.
Controlled, but angry.
Yep. TJ Watt will be back. Hopefully that'll revamp, which again, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if TJ Watt is in there or not, but hopefully that will revamp the team, the defensive side of the ball a little bit. Obviously the secondary's been dealing with injuries and everything, but we have a good chance to change things after the bye week. Again, we're getting off topic a little bit. Let's try to go back here. The running game was absolute trash. Najee Harris made a very straightforward complaint about the offensive line performance, saying that he can't make the holes. He can't do everything. He had 8 rushes for 32 yards, a 4-yard per carry average, which is probably his best all year. But again,
most of that was in the second half when the game was already over.
Correct. When the defense was backed off playing the pass, it was what it was. Jaylen Warren led the team with 6 rushes for 50 yards, with 19 being his longest. Jaylen Warren is proving to be a solid backup, which I'm very excited about. This no name coming out of nowhere, being able to do that. Kenny Pickett, 7 rushes for 37 yards, and the 1 fumble loss. Steven Sims, 2 rushes for 21 yards. And then Marcus Allen apparently had a rush. I didn't catch that.
Yes, that was the fake punt.
Fake punt. That makes sense. Punt.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So a couple takeaways for me from here. It's nice to see Kenny making some things happen with his legs, converting some first downs, extending plays, and throwing the ball away instead of taking those losses. It was nice to see a couple longer runs, even though they were in the second half when the defense was backed up. Because up to this point, the longest run the offense had was an 18-yard run by Gunnar Olszewski, and then other than that, it was like 16 for Najee. So Najee busting off an 18-yarder, Jaylen busting off a 19-yarder does give you a little bit of momentum in the rushing game, which they need badly because we've got to start getting some success with that. And finally, I felt like this was the most effective that the jet sweep had been yet this season. Steven Sims looks like a real natural on that jet sweep. So I'd love to see him incorporated more in that in the future. His ability to make people miss and really just go into it full speed. I think that's been part of the issue is that guys have been getting that handoff on the jet sweep and not going full speed and trying to pick and choose and find a hole. And sometimes that hole is created by running full speed.
Yeah.
Because you blow past everyone before they get an opportunity to get downfield and get at you. And it seems like maybe Steven Sims is just a natural at that.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, fantastic. Let's play him 20 plays a game.
I will say some of that, I will say some of the success from that, I believe, came from that early play with the Chase Claypool pass. I think some of their players had to be more disciplined staying at home with the guys, the receivers, and not let them run past them. So I think that actually helped. But that's what we've been saying the whole time. We've been saying this, you can't just run an end around every time. You got to play action, an end around and run the ball. You got to play action and end around and pass the ball. You got to play action, or you got to do that and pass the ball with the receiver coming across. Like you have to be different with this kinds of stuff. So it was nice to see that and nice to see that work. Yeah,
got to show the same look but have multiple plays coming out of it. You're 100% right on that. That's what makes things effective. That's what makes things tough to defend.
I knew that in 2005 also, playing Madden. Come on, Canada.
Yeah, right.
Freaking figure it out. Run a no huddle with the same offensive unit out there, same formation, and run a different play. That's all you got to do. do that like 4 or 5 times a game and you're going to keep people on their toes, but we haven't done it once really.
Also, weird side note, did not realize that Chase Claypool's left-handed.
Neither did I. That startled the crap out of me. I was like, this dude just straight up did, and then I was like, okay, he's left-handed.
He's left-handed. Yeah.
That was
it was a good throw, too. Let's give him credit.
It looked awkward.
Oh yeah, he's left-handed.
It looked awkward. Whatever. Anyways, we talked about the wide receivers for the most part. I went through all of them talking about their targets and receptions. Freiermuth had 57 yards. Claypool had 45. Johnson had 35. Najee Harris 26. Jaylen Warren 25. Again, Jaylen Warren coming out in the rush game, leading the team, and in the pass game being on there with 25 yards. That's great. We love that. Derek Watt had 6 receiving yards and obviously the 1 touchdown. And then Zach Gentry only had 3 yards. Steven Sims had a negative -1 yard. Actually, it was like a negative -3 yard catch. But unfortunately for him, he just didn't get involved very much in the passing game, which is kind of what we've expected out of him. We talked about it already. Deontay Johnson, consistently the weak spot on this offense, minus the offensive line, of course. At some point,
7 yards a catch. That's not cutting it, man.
At some point, you got to do something about it, though.
Yeah, people were dogging Juju the last couple of years for averaging 8.5, 9 yards a catch. Now we got Deontay averaging less, and nobody's talking about it.
And he's getting paid more.
Way more.
Yeah.
Way more. Yeah. And honestly, Juju was a better teammate. He was always blocking for people. He was always jumping into piles. He was the one that would recover the fumbles when a teammate recovered. I couldn't tell you how many times he did that.
He's the one that laid out Vontaze Burfict in revenge against Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Love that play.
Yep. We need to see more out of Deontay. I feel like if this offense is going to make the turnaround, it's going to be because they're relying more on Claypool and Pickens and less on Deontay.
Yep. I wouldn't be opposed to benching him.
Freiermuth too. Let's be real. Freiermuth is low-key having a nice season. He was another one that was having an issue with not enough yards per reception last season.
Yeah.
And he's really, really improved that this year. Very happy to see that going in the right direction.
Last year was 8.3 yards per reception. This year he's averaging 11.5. So that's fantastic.
That's huge.
Yeah. And
we're first down every catch.
Yeah. We're halfway through the season and he's already over halfway to his reception total from last year. And he's already over double he's above 50% of his yards from last year as well. He was only averaging 31 yards per game last year. He's averaging 52 so far this year. So that's great from him. Unfortunately, just lower on the touchdown. Yeah, unfortunately, just lower on the touchdown. He had 7 last year. He has 1 so far this year. And I think it was like week 1 or something. So whatever. But again, Freiermuth has been playing well, and I'm very excited to see him continue. And that tight end room showing up. Zach Gentry, even Connor Hayward, they're performing better than I think you'd expect a second and third string tight end to perform at this point. Defensive side, the offensive line. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's talk about them. Connor Hayward. It's neat to see somebody making an impact in a game when they have nothing on the stat.
Nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I think he had a tackle. I want to say he had a special teams tackle, but like at a certain point in time, hopefully people start getting off of Derek Watt's back too. Like I've heard way too much in the past of people talking about Derek Watt makes too much money, blah, blah, blah. Man's got nice hands and he's a good blocker. And you're finally starting to get to see a little bit of that this season. A lot more usage than he got last year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Offensive line, left to right. I would say ugly performance, ugly performance, ugly performance, ugly performance, and ugly performance. I don't think any of them get a passing grade. They didn't open any holes in the first half. The game got out of control very quickly. And the only thing that was worse than their run blocking in the first half was their pass blocking, continuously allowing people through the A gaps, B gaps right down the middle, right in Kenny Pickett's face. You had people coming right completely unblocked on the outside with no one picking up the blitzer. Just it looked like they'd never played together before, and it looked like they were all hurt. And I know a couple of them probably are, but Yeah, absolutely have to get better performance out of these guys. Otherwise, next year's draft class needs to look like at least 2 offensive linemen in that draft class. Because you're just not seeing it out of these guys right now. It is not good enough.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't have anything else to say about the offensive line, man. I'm just over watching them not play well. And watching them not play well to the point where it's almost like they don't care. Like, I don't see them getting mad about it. They go over on the sideline, they sit down, they wait for the next time up. It's almost like it's just routine for them to suck this bad. And and at some point, don't get me wrong, and this is the hard part, is they're grown adults, they're men. At some point, they need to have accountability and call themselves out and call each other out. But the coaches that are paid to do this are failing them. The fact that I have not seen a video or seen a image from the sideline of a coach going off on them is sad, because they're failing in almost every aspect of what they're paid to do. If I did that at work, you know how much I'd get in trouble and yelled at, and I'm not even getting paid close to as much as they are. Like, it's sad, man. I just want to see more accountability. I would love to see Cam Hayward over there yelling at him on a kickoff or something where they're not all on the field at the same time. Like, I realize they're different sides of the ball, but Cam Hayward's a vocal leader on that team and can call them out. And I think that would mean a lot coming from someone on the opposite side of the ball almost. So I don't know.
It needs to come from within the room.
I agree, but it's not.
One of those 5 offensive linemen needs to sack up and say, I don't care if one of my teammates punches me in the face. I'm going to get in their face and call them out for playing bad.
Yep.
And yeah, that's the problem right now, is we need to have that one guy that's the clear-cut best of all of them that they can lean on, that can kind of take the reins and say, follow me, this is how we do things. And we don't have it.
Nope, not even close.
You know, probably the 2 best linemen are going to be Chooks and James Daniels on the right side. And Chooks only knows what he's been with the Steelers. And James Daniels, other than the Steelers, just knows the Bears. So tell me how much success he's seen in the NFL. None.
Not a lot. That's for sure.
So we got guys that are just used to, well, hey, if we won half the games, we're doing all right. Like, that's not good enough. We got to have somebody who takes a little more pride than that. And that's why I like seeing Najee Harris speak up after games, and even Kenny Pickett speaking up after games, because these guys are used to winning. They're used to winning, and it really bothers them that they're not winning.
Yep.
And it should bother all of them.
It should. It's not yet, but it should.
Yeah. You're starting to see it, though. Bothering Chase Claypool.
Bothering Kenny
bothering
Pickett.
George Pickens.
Bothering Najee Harris.
Bothering Najee.
It's bothering the guys that matter right now, which is a good thing.
Bothering Cam Hayward. That's for sure.
Yep. And you know who else I bet it's bothering that we just haven't heard of yet? TJ Watt.
Oh, I guarantee.
TJ Watt.
Yeah, you're going to find out on the field.
You're going to find out real fast.
For whoever is starting for the Saints, I feel bad.
Andy Dalton.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know about the 2. He threw 2 pick sixes in like 3 minutes. I don't know.
Who else is there still? Taysom's still there, but he's more of a tight end, right?
Jameis and Taysom are the 2 other guys there, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Boy, that's other than Taysom, that's some pretty immobile guys that are, right where they're going to be.
On the
that
ground.
Couldn't be a better formula for TJ.
Yep. So moving on to the defensive side of the ball. We talked about the offense enough, unfortunately. Whatever. Defensive line, Carlos Davis, we had talked about already getting a sack, and Cam Hayward had a sack on the game. Both those guys played very well. Carlos Davis, obviously limited snap count. Cam Hayward was in there often. Other than that, Montravius Adams was in there and got a freaking what penalty did he get? I don't even remember now. I saw it and I was mad.
I think he got an encroachment or an offsides.
Yeah, I remember that vaguely.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot of production from the defensive line category. You just saw those 2 sacks. You also had one from Malik Reed, who technically was a down lineman, I believe, on that 1 sack play. Even though he's technically outside linebacker position. I don't know. I felt like I wanted to see more from the offensive line specifically.
Yeah, I want to say again, good pressure from Cam a good portion of the game. Not much from the rest of the interior guys, other than Carlos Davis showing some good hustle and getting to that one sack. I did notice on one run play they tried to run to the left. Isaiah Loudermilk had the outside, and he got his guy in a stalemate position. And then he stacked and shed, and then he made the tackle, and it was a 1 yard gain, and that was it. And I liked seeing that, a guy understanding, not only containing because he was the end of the line, so he contained it by getting a little bit of pushback, and then was able to shed his blocker, make the tackle, and get him to the ground for almost no gain. So I think there's some steps in the right direction with Loudermilk, but I'm looking at this list right here as far as like tackles, assists, sacks, all that. And I'm not seeing two guys on here, Tyson Alualu and Montravius Adams, and they both logged a decent number of snaps.
Yep.
So you gotta show up on there somewhere other than I was called for a penalty. Like that is just not good enough out of our nose tackles, D tackles, whatever you want to call them. And you got to think that that's something that's going to get addressed in the offseason. And Alu going into retirement most likely. Adams, I don't know if they're going to bring him back or not.
It's one of those things where if they don't have anybody else, they probably will, especially
Yeah.
with Alu more than likely going into retirement. You can't solve everything in the offseason, although we would like to. You can't solve everything through free agency. You can't solve everything through the draft. You would like to solve at least major issues, which this defensive line probably is one at this point, but so is the offensive line. So is the cornerback room, the safety. Well,
Yep.
not necessarily. Safety depth is an issue, I think, at this point. But there's a lot of things that they got to look into and try to figure out. And I say the offensive line. You could draft every single position and potentially get a starter. I think personally, and not in the sense of. Let me clarify. Not in like you couldn't draft 5 guys in a row, but in the first round you could draft any offensive position. And there's a chance they could start over who we have on the team now, which is kind of sad. Minus maybe Kevin Dotson, Chooks.
I would
are the
say
2 guys.
Offensive line, yeah, all 5 positions. Wide receiver, probably not. Tight end, probably not.
That's what I meant. Offensive line specifically.
Okay, so you meant
yeah.
Offensive line, yeah. I think if you take a guy in the first round,
left guard
over who we have.
Left
Take your
guard,
pick.
left
Doesn't matter what
tackle,
position.
right tackle, right guard, center. Like it doesn't matter.
It's an upgrade no matter what, most likely.
There's a chance you could draft someone in the second or third who could be a starter. Like that's where we're at right now.
Absolutely.
So,
and that's what they need to do. Let's be real. We've been talking about this for a couple of seasons. Pittsburgh isn't drafting offensive linemen before the 3rd or 4th round for a long time now, and it's starting to show.
Yep.
It's starting to show. You're putting all these guys out there that are mid-round talent, and they're facing teams like the Eagles that are loaded with first-round guys on their defensive line, or people like Hargrave that have proven it in the NFL and got 2 sacks against our O-line. Yep. Tell me he wasn't chomping at the bit to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And a forced fumble.
Yeah. And then they got guys like Jordan Davis, who's freaking a monster. I'm happy he's not. Yeah, happy he's not super hurt, but thankfully he went out for a little bit with an injury.
Josh Sweat, first-round pick.
Yep.
Then the other D tackle, they're absolute monster and has been for years and years.
Fletcher Cox. Yep.
Yeah, Fletcher's amazing. This is a stud group of defensive linemen, and a lot of it is because of high draft picks or high investments in free agency. You got to do it. You can't just keep on ignoring it and bringing in these mid-tier guys or giving up a 5th or 6th round pick for a guy like Chris Wormley and expecting him to be good enough. It's not. It's not. So I'm excited to see DeMarvin Leal come back.
Yeah.
I want to move on to outside linebackers if you're cool with that.
Yeah, let's talk about him.
Okay. Malik Reed, best game of the season that he's had thus far.
Hands down. He had a pass breakup too.
Yeah, he had a pass breakup. He had his first sack of the season. He got some pressure throughout the course of the game. Obviously, there wasn't enough from anyone, but the fact that they got 3 sacks in this game was a big step in the right direction for not having TJ Watt still. Highsmith, I felt like got a lot of pressure, but just couldn't get there to get the actual sack.
Yep.
And again, part of that is It's a collective thing. If only one person gets to the quarterback, then he can go wherever he wants to escape.
Yep.
So the other people also need to be collapsing the pocket to give him nowhere to go. That's how Carlos Davis got a sack. Alex Highsmith pushed the pocket. He forced him out. Next thing you know, it's right into where Carlos Davis is at, and he gets the sack.
I want to say one more thing about Carlos Davis that was on that sack play that spoke to me more than some other people's play. He fell down on the play that he got the sack. A lot of guys in the NFL that are guys that, come up from practice squad, this or that, back of the roster guys, fall down and they're like, oh, shoot, I fell down, whatever. They kind of slowly get back up. He got back up quick and was able to make the sack because of it. He did not stay on the ground. He did not just give up on the play. He did not look around and be like, okay, what happened? He got right back up and made the play happen. Loved it. Loved to see that.
Got right back to his assignment, too.
Yep.
He knew that he had contain on that side, and he got up and started flying to that direction. Because of that hustle, he made it happen.
Him and Hayward ran a stint on that play. Or a stunt. And swapped.
Stunt. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It was a great play. Love to see it. Love to see that.
Yeah, effort. Absolutely. That kind of heart, maybe this is somebody you can use in your rotation in the future.
Yep.
I know that Carlos Davis in previous years, when given an opportunity, really didn't show much. But I did like at least what I saw from him as far as hustle and effort in this game. You don't get that sack without it. So,
yeah.
Other than Highsmith and Reed, the other outside linebackers didn't make an impact in the game.
Nope.
Middle linebackers also not much of an impact in this game.
Nope.
Could have used more, but they weren't the biggest. They weren't the biggest issue in this one.
No, we know what the biggest issue was.
Yeah, we're going there right now. We're going to the cornerback room.
Yeah.
Biggest issue of the day was the corners. Even the safeties, to a degree, didn't get there and didn't help out. The first touchdown given up, Minkah Fitzpatrick could have made the play. If he makes a better play on that ball, it's an interception, and it changes the tone that's set because they're not going to continue to pound A.J. Brown play after play. If the first time you go deep to him, he gets picked off, you're not as likely to go to him. So in that play, Terrell Edmonds was in man coverage on him. Minkah realized it, got back there and actually got in position, but then just mistimed it as far as getting at the ball.
And I would even argue he wasn't in position. He had the opportunity to be in position, but didn't high point the ball correctly. He basically went behind A.J. Brown. Yeah, he went behind A.J. Brown rather than in front of him. Not gonna work that way. So.
Yep, and then the next couple of times it was Ahkello Witherspoon getting beat by A.J. Brown, who just had better get comfortable with that name during that game because A.J. Brown was an absolute terror versus our guys. And you could tell, we talked about it in the pregame show, that this is a guy that's built kind of like a running back, 230-pound receiver that's only 6 foot tall. He's very strong,
the swole,
well put together, and you could tell it was like a college kid playing against high school kids.
Yep.
It seemed like a big difference in talent. And Ahkello Witherspoon got benched in the game because of it.
Yep. As he should. That's the fact that hasn't happened to Deontay Johnson yet ticks me off.
Yeah.
Because you can do it to your defensive guys, but you can't do it to your offensive guys. What? Because they're probably worried about his ego. Because Deontay Johnson is so up his own butt about feeling like he's owed this or owed that, or he's the star receiver, so this and that. He hasn't shown it. Not once this year, in my opinion, has he shown it.
Nope.
So he's had moments in games, but not, to me, it's got to be I got to see 60 minutes of you trying your absolute hardest and making plays, and I haven't seen it yet.
And how many times has he had the opportunity in the end zone this year where he caught a ball and didn't get his feet in bounds? I want to say it's been 3 or 4 times now where he could have made a big impact and made a touchdown catch and has 0 on the season because he just isn't putting enough work in getting his feet in bounds.
Yep, I agree. We talked about Ahkello Witherspoon. We talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick. We talked a little bit about Terrell Edmonds. James Pierre came in, did re-injury, a foot injury. Cam Sutton had 2 pass breakups, which is great. But I think he dropped a pick again this game, didn't he? He had an opportunity.
He did, he had an opportunity on one, could have had it. I mean, it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't like the one he dropped last week.
Yeah, he's kicking himself for it, no doubt about that. I thought the Cam Sutton was probably the best secondary player in this game. James Pierre did help stop the bleeding when he came in. They immediately checked him, and he did a good job of shutting down A.J. Brown and limiting the damage that was done in the second half there. Also in the second half, Terrell Edmonds played a little bit better, and he got a breakup on a one-on-one later on too. So you started to see it a little bit. By then, the lead was so large that unless the Steelers' offense started actually clicking, it wasn't going to make a difference anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on all of that. Unfortunately, let's talk special teams for a quick second. You know, Nick Skiba came in 2 for 2 on field goal attempts, which was fantastic. His longest was 38. Great kick. Was proud of him for that. Extra points was 1 for 1 on those. Skiba came in. He played well. I was impressed with that. Normally, go ahead.
He made his kicks, but I'm going to say I was disappointed on him kicking the ball out of bounds on a kickoff.
Yep.
And then the other ones that he didn't kick out of bounds only made it to about the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
And we knew that he did not have the biggest leg in the world, but kicking it out of bounds was devastating because, you know, when you're already having a hell of a time stopping the other team and they get to start at the 40 without even doing anything, you just can't do it. So that sucks. But his field goal and extra point kicking was very good. We'll give him that.
Yeah, absolutely. Presley Harvin, 4 punts for 45 yards average. 1 was inside the 20. His longest was 55. Not a bad game from Presley Harvin, but not a good one. One of the punts was really bad. I expected it to be a little bit. We had an opportunity to pin him deep, and I felt like it came off the side of his foot or something. Unfortunate there. Steven Sims had a really good return. Not his best one by any means, but he had a good return. He was doing his job. 2 kick returns for 47 yards, 1 punt return for only 10 yards. Steven Sims looks like a guy that he could break away. And I'm excited to see it moving forward because I think, and he's even said it, he thinks he can be a game changer for us. And I love to hear that from him. I love to hear the confidence from Steven Sims.
Yeah, and he already has been having a return that he almost took for a touchdown in a previous game. So I think Pittsburgh might have.
It's the longest return
across their future guy.
Longest return for Pittsburgh that didn't go for a touchdown.
Oh, really?
Because that's a fun fact.
You know what was funny about that is that watching it live and seeing those guys run him down, I was thinking, man, he is nowhere near as fast as I thought he was. And then it turned out that he was clocked at the 5th fastest offensive person that week. It just so happened that the guy that ran him down ran a 4.30 flat. So it wasn't necessarily that he was slow. He actually was moving very fast. Just happened to run up against the starting corner with 4.3 speed.
Yeah, a little unfortunate for him for sure.
Yeah, bad luck. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Injuries in the game. We talked about James Pierre re-injuring a foot injury. Akilla Witherspoon. James, he injured something, right?
Yep, his self-esteem. Hopefully he can get that back because honestly, when the dude has it, he seems to play pretty well. But I would say that his self-esteem is in the tanker right now because after about week 3, he really wasn't playing good. And this was a ugly return for him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We were really looking forward to getting him back, especially with the injuries that Levi Wallace and Josh Jackson. And then there it is. He's back, but he's benched halfway through the game for poor play. So now you get yourself back in a situation of hoping that Levi Wallace can come back for the game versus the Saints, and maybe even Josh Jackson as well. But what do? You know, he just signed a 2-year deal. You were hoping he'd be your number 1 corner, and now you don't even want him on the field when you're playing mostly nickel and have 3 corners out there. So
yeah,
that's a real bad sign. It makes me wonder if Pittsburgh won't release him at the end of the year and move on. I know it's not much of a contract. It's only $4 million a year. So it doesn't really hurt you that much to keep him on the team. But if you're not going to play him starting, what's the point, you know?
Yep. No, I agree completely with that. I agree.
Starting to look more and more like Joey Porter Jr. should be the new starting corner for the Steelers next year.
Yeah, right. We'll take it. We'll get him back. We'll get the second generation. Again, unfortunate loss for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh now falls to a record of 2-6. They're 4th in the AFC North, dead last. Not even close to wild card contention at this point. But again, the season's still young. We got through the roughest part of the schedule. We'll see what happens when TJ Watt comes back. We'll see if the bye week does anything. They have more time to watch film. They have more time to prepare as a team. They have more time to make coaching adjustments if they need to. Not necessarily hiring or firing, but just time to change the game plan. Often week to week, you don't have the time to really change up your playbook or change things. This is the opportunity. I tell you what, Matt Canada needs to come out here with something this next game because it's not working right now. So be on the lookout for that. Again, we can't thank you guys enough for listening. Reminder show next Sunday. Not sure exactly time frame when that will be released, but it will be released next Sunday, going over the mid-season standings, the stats, the what are we doing good, what are we doing bad, other than everything, and we'll talk about it all. So keep an eye open for that. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Subscribe and ring the bell. It is free. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.